Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. And what you're about to see is a pre-recorded training session we did over in the United States. But be assured that a lot of the material that we cover is really applicable to any automotive application. So just be aware that yes, it is a lot of North American vehicles, but they will apply a lot of the same principles apply over in the UK as well. Now, if you do have any questions, if you're watching this during the premiere, you can just leave it in the chat. We'll be monitoring live chat. If you're watching this after the premiere, then just feel free to leave a comment underneath the video and we'll get to those as we can as well. So my name is Jason Gabrenas. I'm one of Snap-on's diagnostic technical trainers. I've been in the training department since 2013, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on, so I had 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So I worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, just became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up having the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bed. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is TPMS operation and testing. So TPMS stands for tire pressure monitoring systems, and these are the systems on the vehicle that tell us when our tire pressure is getting low or too high or something of that nature. This allows us to stay safe on the road. Of course, we want to have proper tire pressure in those tires. So let's talk a little bit about history. How long have these been around and who's been using them and how far have we come? So it first started in 1986. The first production vehicle to have tire pressure monitoring system in it was a Porsche 959. And that system used two sensors per wheel, mounted 180 degrees apart in special holes in the valley of the wheel. And they looked like a stack of poker chips, so circular and had looked like a stack. Transmit at a 433 megahertz frequency. That'll come into play later. So let's just remember that 433 megahertz. You can get codes and data from the scan tool. Now, it was used in the 928 models from 1990 to 1994 as well. So up until then, that's pretty much all they used it for. Then in 97, we get the first domestic US vehicle with tire pressure monitoring, and that was a 1997 C5 Corvette. Schrader developed the valve for them, and that was the first original equipment TPMS sensor in the US vehicle market. Now, vehicle manufacturers back then and still now really have no standard tire pressure monitoring systems. It's all kind of their own proprietary, not really proprietary, but very specific to a brand as to how they do it. Now, you're either going to see a simple dash light, or in higher end cars, you'd see each tire shown. Nowadays, at least they've standardized the light, but everything else is kind of up to the manufacturer's discretion. Then around the turn of the century, in the year 2000, a large US vehicle manufacturer had to recall vehicles because they were having rollover accidents, 279 accident deaths, and attributed to 14.4 million tires out there. And then the government decided they needed to get involved with that. So they came up with the TREAD Act, which was signed November 1st of 2000. And that law intends to increase consumer safety by mandating TPMS in all vehicles under 10,000 pounds. Now, that's a key right there. Starting in 2004, it was assigned to the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And the system needs to notify the driver when the tire is below 25% by a dashboard warning light within 20 minutes, either 25% lower or 25% high as well. And then the dash warning light was also standardized at that time. So according to the tire placard is where we would have to set it up. And a solid light on the dash, a solid TPMS light, means the tire pressure detected under or over 25% of the OE door placard value. Flashing for 60 seconds, then a solid light tells us at least one sensor isn't communicating with vehicle. Could be a dead battery or a damaged sensor, because these sensors do have batteries in them and they're not replaceable. So you need to replace the whole sensor if the battery dies. It could be an incorrect relearn, and then additional tire pressure monitoring component failures such as a module, wheel initiator, ECU, scan tool problems, all sorts of things like that. So how's the system operate? It's fairly simple in its design. There's 4 or more tire sensors, depends on how many tires we have on the vehicle. But there'll be a tire sensor in each tire, and they are radio frequency transmitters. So they'll transmit over a set frequency, which we'll talk about in a minute. It transmits it to an antenna, which then transmits that data to the module. So it knows what the pressure are in each of the 4 tires or more tires on the vehicle as they're rolling down the road. And if it gets below 25%, throws a code. A few different types of sensors out there. We get the least common on the left-hand side here. That's the banded. That was early on. Ford liked to use those a lot. The sensor was wrapped around the tire rim. So you see we got this, it's like maybe like a metal strap that goes around the inside of the tire. And then you got this actual sensor there. And it would just ride around on the tire like that. It was discontinued by most Ford vehicles 09 to 010. So anything after that's not going to use that. Then we have the clamp-in type. So the clamp-in type's not as common. They are still out there. It's way more common than the band. But it is the sensor itself is kind of like one piece. So you got the sensor down here and it goes all the way up through the valve stem. And then it's held on by this long nut right here. So you see that black. Black is the gasket right there. So that's the rubber gasket that seals on the tire. And then you need to torque these down properly. There's some special tooling for that, special sockets. You got to torque it to the right torque spec. And then that'll hold it in place. Now, the thing about this is, at least where I live, is salt belt places where they put salt on the road. Salt can get in there and it can corrode it's just like a white metal or aluminum. It's nothing fancy, and it gets in there and it causes corrosion, and then you can't get them apart. I remember Subaru, the first couple of years they did TPMS, they used this clamp-in style, and it was awful to deal with. You have to cut them off sometimes with like a tie grinder. You have to cut the nut in half in order to get it off. So not that easy to deal with when they do get contaminated. Otherwise, I'm sure they work perfectly fine, but it was just a struggle as a technician when they would get corroded and stuff. And then now we have the most common one's going to be the snap-in ones. Essentially, it looks a lot like a regular normal non-TPMS valve stem. It just might be a little longer on the cap end. And then it's going to have this extra metal material down the bottom, which is used to screw in the sensor. So we got the sensor right here. It's just usually it's a torque screw or a tamper-proof torque screw. And that has to be torqued properly as well. And it's not a big screw, it's just a teeny tiny little thing. And then the sensor attaches to that. So you do need a special tool to snap it into the rim. I suppose you could probably use one for a regular non-TPMS tire. Should probably work pretty well the same as well. And then you have to have that set up. So starting in 07, that's when Schrader came out with the snap-in valve. So this is between 07 to current, really. 2-piece, low cost, easy to install. So all you do is pull the rubber valve through, and then you can attach the little bolt down there on the bottom, or nut, as it were, depending on the tire type. A few different types here, as you can see, is 7 different variations of that, but it's 75 to 80% of the market uses the rubber snap-in ones now. So as you can see here, is a special torque device for that, for the Torx bit, and a special torquing device for the Schrader valve that's inside the by 2008, we had 100% coverage on U.S. cars and light trucks. So every U.S. car and light truck made in back then, it was 100% of the market had tire pressure monitoring on it. Sensor frequencies use both 315 or 433 megahertz if you're in the U.S. By and large, you're going to see 315 megahertz used in the U.S. cars and light trucks. Some OEs offer 315 or 433 with like a Ram 1500, but that's fewer and further between. So majority of the U.S. can be 315. And then there's a multitude of different sensors that are out there. Also notice this, on these older vehicles, sensor battery can fail within 7 to 10 years. So we're talking 2012, maybe even like a 2015 at this point, if we're talking 7 years, those are up to 2022. So they can fail, the battery can fail. And like we said, it's not replaceable. So you need to replace the whole unit as a unit in order to do that. Then come 2009, the European Union decided to enact TPMS legislation as well. So it's over on the other side of the pond too. So they mandate OEs on all vehicles do this, and it's a direct measurement system at 433 megahertz. So see how we had the two different frequencies? They use 433 more over in Europe, 315 over here. Higher speed German vehicles use more clamp-in metal valves. So if you're talking the more high performance vehicles, they're going to use the clamp-in metal valves, I guess, just more for more safety, more security, that we don't have valves failing or whatever. They also have tighter dash light specs over there. So it needs to be 20% of a warm tire versus 25% of a cold tire that they use in the US. You can also program a second set of tire pressure monitor sensors for winter tires. So you can just swap them over and you don't have to worry about doing any electronics with that as well. I can swap the OE wheels in the spring. Now we mentioned direct measurement. So direct measurement is going to be pretty much 94% of the vehicles you're going to find in the States are going to use this direct measurement, where it's a tire pressure sensor and it's measuring the pressure inside the tire of the air in the tire. That's direct measurement. Indirect is used, however, on some brands. Some manufacturers use this. And what that does is, instead of directly using the tire pressure monitor, we will use wheel speed. So it's going to measure the wheel speed, and the wheel will spin differently at a different speed if the tire pressure is too low, and it'll spin at a different speed if it's too high as well. So depending on how much of an anomaly it is between all the other tires versus this one tire. So if it's a lot slower, then it's going to say, all right, well, it's obviously low because we got a lot of friction. And then a couple of years later, 2009, VDO introduced a multi-application sensor. So they call it a ready sensor. And that is used on multiple vehicles. I'll say about 6 or 7 part numbers for both 315 and 433 megahertz applications. And basically it took the OE software protocols and stacked them on a single sensor. So these are shipped blank. You can use your TPMS tool, any of the Snap-on tools, TPMS 3, TPMS 4, TPMS 5. Can perform the function of cloning the sensor. So you'll essentially copy the information off the existing sensor and then you paste it into the new one all wirelessly, using the tool there. So it is helpful. It's useful, especially for aftermarket shops if you're dealing with multiple brands and I don't have to buy a Honda sensor and a Ford sensor and a Chevy sensor. I can just buy a sensor brand like this VDO one. There's dozens of them out there now, but VDO was the first one. So there's tons of different sensor brands out there, and it decreases the amount of parts that I need to carry. I could also stock a part. I could stock it as a part. So if I only have 6 different part numbers, I can have a little drawer full of the 6 different part numbers. Then I don't have to worry about the 100 different sensors that might be out there on the market. I only have to worry about 6, right? So very useful, very helpful, especially in the aftermarket where you see multiple brands. You don't have to buy direct from the OE for that. Also, the other fun thing as a technician is there's no standard service relearn reset for TPMS. Every manufacturer kind of does their own thing. GM has 33 different procedures across all their lines, and it is a stationary function, so the vehicle doesn't need to move. It just sits in the bay, and we use a special tool for it. BMW has 15 procedures, and that's an automatic procedure. So you put it in a learn mode and you drive it, and it learns automatically. Nissan has 1 procedure across the board. Really, I call it 2 procedures, but it's essentially the same thing. It's just we use it with a scanner or without a scanner. And then we can go in and reset it that way. Also, this quick reference guide over here, which you can find out on the internet, and it tells you whether or not the sensor's in the tire or on the wheel, when I need to recalibrate or relearn. So in this case, after tire rotation, most manufacturers recommend that. And then after tire and sensor replacement, of course, you need to do it then as well. As far as breakdown of all the vehicles out there, about 35% of the vehicles out there are going to be a stationary reset. 38% of the vehicles out there will be an automatic reset where I drive it. And then 27% are going to be an OBD2 reset. So generally speaking, the OBD2 ones are going to be Asian vehicles, because over in Japan, I guess that's just how they do it. They do you need a scanner and you punch in numbers, or you do a relearn mode that way. So we're going to see some examples here now. So different reset procedures that we can talk about. Now, if you own a Snap-on scan tool, any of the last tools in the last probably 5-6 years, as long as you're current on your software, you'll have access to quick lookups function. So in quick lookups, we have available oil specs and resets, as well as tire and wheel service. Now, on the Windows-based tools, we have TSPs as well. But in this case, we're going to look at tire and wheel service because that has all the options and all the information for our TPMS. So this is first example is off an 18 GMC Acadia. So it says when the, let's see, so set the tire pressure on the wheels to specified pressure, set the parking brake, place the vehicle power mode and on run start. Make sure the tire pressure info display option is turned on. So the info displays in the driver information center can be turned on and off through the settings menu. Use the 5-way control on the right side of the steering wheel to scroll to the tire pressure screen under the driver information center info page. Press and hold the SEL button located in the center of the 5-way DIC control. The horn sounds twice to signal the driver is in relearn mode, and an entire learning active message displays on the screen. So you would know it because it's going to beep, and then it's going to tell you that it's learning. Start with the driver's side front tire. So we're going to take a tire sensor activation tool. We're going to talk more about those in a little bit. I'm going to put it near the sidewall, near the valve stem, then press the button to activate the sensor. Once it's activated the sensor, it transmits its ID to the module that's learning, and then a horn trip will confirm that the sensor ID has been matched to the tire and wheel position. Now, it is key to do it in the order that they say. 99 times out of 100, it's going to be starting on the driver's side front, then passenger side front, and clockwise around the vehicle. After a horn trip is sounded, proceed to the next 3 sensors in the following order: right front, right rear, and left rear. After the left rear sensor has been learned, the horn sounds 2 times to indicate the sensor identification code has been matched to the driver's side rear, and the TPMS sensor matching process is no longer active. So once we're done, we're done. Now, I got this question in the last class. So what happens when I get duplicate sensors, or how do I get duplicate sensors in there? Like it says the left front and the right front are both the same sensor ID. How does that happen? Well, that can happen if you program the same one twice. Theoretically, the car's not that smart. The car just knows what you're telling it. So if you tell the car, oh yeah, I'm on the left front, and you hit it, and then you say, okay, I'm on the right front now, and then you hit it and you never left the left front, it's going to think that sensor ID is programmed into whatever tires you tell it is. So the car's not that smart to know, oh, hey, this one already got put in before. It doesn't know enough. It just knows it's trusting you. It's trusting you as a technician to do what you're supposed to do and go on each tire once. Sometimes your finger slips or whatever. And if it happens, then you just got to restart the relearn and relearn. Not a big deal, but it could happen. It's happened before. And like I said, I got a question on it in the last class as well. Same type of thing. So just make sure if that does happen, just go around and just reset it again. So that was GM, and that was the stationary one, right? So now we have the BMW, and that is the automatic one. So they're using iDrive. So that's their driver information system on their car. Going to go to My Vehicle, then Vehicle Status, then Reset Tire Pressure Monitor. I'm going to start the engine, but do not drive off. I'm going to reset the tire inflation pressure, and then hit Perform Reset. And we're going to drive it. The wheels are displayed in gray, and the following is displayed: resetting tire pressure monitor. After driving faster than 19 miles an hour for a short period, the set tire inflation pressures are accepted as reference values. So you want to make sure you have them inflated properly before you drive. The reset is completed automatically while driving. You may interrupt this trip at any time, and when you continue, the reset resumes automatically. After a successfully completed reset, the wheels on the control display are shown in green, and tire pressure monitor active. See label for recommended pressures is displayed. So you're going to set them to the specified pressure, drive it down the road, and it automatically learns it and says, okay, well, this is where the tires are. This is where the tires are supposed to be. So we're just going to go from there. Next one's on a Ram. Now, sometimes you'll go into this tire specs and you won't find anything because the manufacturer doesn't provide it. In this case, it's a little bit different. So on this 2018 Ram 1500, we're going to go into functional resets instead. Now, this is a security link session, so you do need to have an account with FCA Chrysler, AutoAuth, and make sure all of your numbers and serial numbers, etc., are in the right places in between your Snap-on account and your AutoAuth. We're going to go in there, and that is a tire pressure monitor system. We see it right there. So we can do program any of the tires, including the spare. So we're going to choose left front tire sensor ID. And it says this function should be used to write the left front sensor ID into the ECU. It's going to tell you what the current tire sensor ID is. So in this case, it's just some dummy numbers. Hit continue. Please make sure you have the 8-character sensor ID available. The ID can be found on the tire sensor label. So on the tire sensor itself, as well as the box that it comes in, should be available. Going to have it where it says enter to the ID. You're going to hit edit, and then you can type it in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We hit OK. And then it says it wants to verify what's the first character is number 1, number whatever it happens to be. We'll hit continue. And then tire sensor ID programming is successful at that once it's done. And then we'll talk about the Nissan. So Nissan, as we said, we have 2 different ways of doing it. We can do it with an activation tool or without an activation tool. If we use it with an activation tool, we're going to hook up with our scan tool and we're going to go into the ID registration mode. If we don't have the special tool, we're going to go down here. We're also going to go into the scan tool, but we're going to set our tire pressures to whatever it tells us to set it to. Then when it's in learn mode, that the computer sees, okay, well, I see 36 PSI on this tire. So that means it must be on the front left of the vehicle. Like we said, the computer only knows what you're telling it. So if I set the right rear to 36 PSI, it's going to think it's that one. So it's only as smart as the person operating it. We go to functional resets. We have options for registration with the tool, registration without the tool. And then as far as the tool concerned, the 2 current ones that Snap-on has now anyways are the TPMS 4 and the TPMS 5. TPMS 4 pretty much requires a scan tool because it doesn't have an OBD2 port or anything like that. So anything you need a scan tool for, you need a scan tool. TPMS 5 is pretty much just a standalone TPMS tool. So it also has some scanner functions for the TPMS anyways on the tool. It also has a DLC cable for it. So it works either way. Big price difference between the 2, but you get a ton of more features on the 5. As far as activating though, you see how it looks like it's got a little Wi-Fi signal right there, and then it's got a little Wi-Fi signal right there. So if I was going to use this as an activation tool, I just take this, put it next to the tire, and then I hit the little button right here. It's going to activate it. That's all it does. It's just like an electromagnet. It turns it on. It says, hey, transmit. It turns it on. It transmits, sends the ID to the car. The car learns it, and we're good to go. TPMS 5, you have to go in through a couple more menus to get there, but it works in pretty much the same way. You can see there's like a little antenna up on the corner right there. So either way, if you don't have a TPMS tool in the shop, it'd be a really good idea to have one because cars have had them for 15 years now. So not a bad, if you aren't into doing tire pressure monitoring systems, the tools are out there for sure. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to, if you're not into it, get into it because they're out there and it's here to stay. So might as well do it. So here it is without the tool. Registration process will only work with existing sensors without the tool. If I have a brand new sensor installed, I have to use that activation. Then it's going to tell us to adjust the tire pressure accordingly. In this case, we got 34, 31, 29, and 26. Also a good idea if you're working with TPMS on a vehicle, have a nice accurate tire gauge. Generally, an analog gauge, probably not the best idea. Probably a digital gauge would be a good idea. So that way I can see at least, am I at 34 or am I at 34.9, which might be 35? What is it? So having a nice accurate gauge also helps working on this thing. And then it says TPMS light on the dash will start flashing once you hit continue. Key on engine running, drive the vehicle 5 to 15 minutes until test completed screen is displayed. Vehicle must be driven for this to work. TPMS light will go out. And then it'll be done. Now let's talk about a couple other scanner operations we may need to use when we're working with TPMS. So we're back on the 2018 GMC, and you'll also note there's a functional test in here for tire type and pressure selection. So if we go in there, we're going to choose our tire type, and then we can choose our pressure selection. If we just hit edit, it's going to allow us to go in here and pretty much anything from 26 to 95 PSI. It'll allow us to choose. There's a couple oddballs that aren't in there for some reason. Manufacturer doesn't let you do like 31 PSI. I don't know why, but that's limited by the manufacturers. What's what they want. So 26 to 95, pretty much, give or take a couple. So you can just set it to whatever you need it to be, judging by your tire, if you change your tires. and you want to set them higher, you want to set them lower. Like, for example, maybe the factory tires on here are supposed to be like 44, 46 PSI. And then you want to go off-road and you want to lower the pressure. But you don't want your TPMS light on. Just come over here and set it like 28 PSI. So you're able to do that within many different vehicles nowadays. You're allowed to change. So hit continue, and then it'll say it's done. Also, let's not forget motorcycles are getting pretty fancy nowadays too, and it's been a little while. They have tire pressure monitoring systems on them as well. So oftentimes it's going to be just like with the tire pressure monitoring tool. You'll walk in there, you can ID the vehicle, like I know the TPMS 4, TPMS 5. You can walk in, you can ID a motorcycle as well. So if a motorcycle has it, you can go in and walk you through the procedure, and you can reset it that way as well. And then kind of new to the game, remember how we said the law originally said under 10,000 pounds. So now they have it where they need to be above 10,000 pounds. They need to have it as well. So we can walk through that. And then also 2019 and 2020, you started seeing OE trailer tire pressure monitoring systems as well. We can add a trailer to our vehicle right here. We can see how it says trailer setup. I don't know what kind of vehicle this is on, but this is trailer setup there. And then we can also do the trailer tire pressure, which is going to be right there. So it just allows you to set your tires and monitor the tires in the trailer as well. So pretty much anything on the road with a tire now is going to have TPMS in it. I think you can pretty well hang your hat on. All right, so let's go live on the tool, talk about a couple things. So I'm going to start with this Jeep here. Go on the scanner. So that is, since this is an 18 and newer Jeep, it means it's behind the secure gateway. So that's just what's going on here. We're doing a security link here. All right, unlocked. There we go. And then there's all of my stuff. Right, so we got tire pressure monitor here, which is going to give us, in this case, we got codes and data. So data we're going to be able to see. We're going to be able to see the different sensor IDs, temperatures if applicable, sensor IDs on each tire, and then low pressure warnings and such. It'll tell us whether the hardware is defective or not. Also tells us, where each sensor is. Sometimes it'll say, okay, it's left front, left, right, rear, etc. So you can monitor a lot of that through here. Some manufacturers also provide battery PIDs as well, so we know how the battery is doing. On the TPMS 3, 4, and 5, the TPMS tools we have, they also, if you scan each tire pressure sensor, it'll tell you the battery status as well. Now, on a lot of vehicles as well, we need to go into the body control module in order to do stuff like this too. So, for example, if I want to update my tire pressure, it's in the body control module on this Jeep. Procedure will update the tire pressure monitoring system's load inflation pressure stored in the body control module and the tire pressure monitor if present. Use the cold tire inflation pressure for the front and rear tires listed on the tire and loading information label located on the inside driver's door or driver's door jamb. Continue. It's going to tell us what's currently in there. So these are my current pressure values, front and rear, and then what's set inside the module. And then what it's going to do is it's going to say select the front placard pressure first. So let's say it's like 36. Then it's really, you can't even tell anything happens, and then it flips over to the rear. So you just got to be aware of that. You might not see much happen on the screen, but you got to make sure you read it. So we did the front already. Let's set the rear at like 38. Then it's going to write it into the ECU. It's simple programming. And it says successfully updated the pressure hold values, tire pressure threshold values. And then it would show you the current values here. I'm in a demonstration mode, so of course it's not going to show me anything necessarily realistic, right? So that is my Jeep. Next thing, let's go back to that GMC. And we'll go to my quick lookups. We'll go into that tire and wheel service again. Like I said, it's a quick link on pretty much any current snap-on scan tool, current software. Acadia. It's going to give us our TPMS reminder reset. We already saw that. You can also see removal and repair. So this is going to tell you how to remove, how to install, how to repair your different tire pressure sensors. And then also it gives us tire fitment as well. So we can see four-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, any vehicle options, and factory tire size, optional tire sizes as well, tire inflation pressures, wheel nut torque specs, wheelbase, rim size, and bolt pattern. Looks like they're all 6 by 120 on there. And then, of course, if I wanted to hook up into the scanner as well, I can go to functional reset. And functional test is right there. And I can do tire type and pressure selection, which we saw already there as well. Because we can change it, right? So good to know. And then last thing, this one had a couple little weird things in it as we went through. So it's a 2016 Camry. And we'll go on a tire and wheel service this way. Okay, so this has the tire registration process. Says we need to use the scan tool in order to do it with the special tool to turn it on. And then we have initializations there as well. It's going to tell us a couple different things. Walk you through the procedure. Remove and repair, same deal. There's how it works. Tire fitment, not much change on that. And then functional reset, we're going to go in here, and there's a couple interesting things. So we have the tire ID registration and the TPMS module on this Toyota. It's used to register the tire pressure transmitter IDs. Okay, key on, engine off. Going to do the main set of tires. You must have each tire pressure sensor ID ready before continuing. This is very similar to the Ram. And it says number of unregistered IDs is 4. So the tire sensor ID for this vehicle is 7-character identifier. If you acquired the IDs from a data display, please ignore the leading 0 when entering the registration of each sensor. So if I took the data, copied it, and then I need to plug it back in, and it says 0 as the leading number, we need to remove that 0. So it just gives us over here that. So it comes up as 8 digits in the pin or the PID, and then you need to punch in 7 digits. I'm going to continue. And there's the first sensor ID. We'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Okay. That's what you entered. Confirm. Second sensor. Right. Third sensor. And fourth sensor. So you'd have to punch those in manually. I'm not going to do that right now. Registration completed. And we're done. So in that case, you need the sensor IDs off the vehicle in order to program them in. So you do need a scan tool to do that. Or like I said, the TPMS 5 does have built-in function for that as well. And with that, that is our time here today. So make sure you tune in for new diagnostic content every week. We will be premiering a new video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time. So make sure you check it out on the YouTube channel. If you're watching, well, of course, you would be watching this on YouTube, but make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, ring the little notification bell so you know anytime we post new content. And it's youtube.com/SnapOnDiagnosticsUK. With that, time for questions. If you have any questions, just feel free. Once again, if you're watching this on a premiere, just leave it in the live chat and we'll answer those. Otherwise, leave a comment under the video and we will get to those as we monitor those comments as well. So I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learning a little bit more about how you might be able to be more efficient at diagnosing vehicles using some of the information that we've given you today. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Hopefully you can watch and see you on any of our other videos. Have a good week, have a good night, and take care.